Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the June 3rd District Data Coordinator meeting for the Mid-Hudson Regional Information Center. If you have not yet done so, please go ahead and sign into the chat with your full name and your district. We do this in order to let your district know that you actually attended the meeting like you said you're going to. Please mute your microphone and turn your camera off. The meeting is being recorded, and we will send you any meeting assets that we have to share with you after the meeting. That is often done in the data news monthly e-newsletter, so please keep an eye out for that. We are disseminating information through that newsletter as well as other emails. So moving on to our agenda, we are going to have due dates and timelines, followed by some updates and reminders by the special services, testing services, data collection and reporting services teams. We will look ahead to some information that is coming up for you. And then, since we do not have a meeting in July or August, we have a looking way ahead section. And then, time allowing, we will have some time for questions at the end. Again, we do have a jam-packed schedule for you today, so we're just going to get right into it. Go ahead, Sam, take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So as usual, at the top here, we have our reporting roadmap and the timeline that's linked for your reference. And tomorrow, June 4th, we have some important due dates we spoke about previously for the L and immigrant counts for Title III funding. So make sure that you're checking your L's have the 0231 L eligibility in the L program. Do all those students that took a NICETEL didn't score commanding, do they have L programs? So you can check ASAP for those students for the NICETEL report. Additionally, for immigrants, make sure they have that 8282 immigrant program fact and they have an accurate home language and demographics. And then also tomorrow we have the UPK enrollment final due date. So that does directly affect your pre-K funding. So make sure that you have checked the SIRS 333 for accuracy. So moving on to June 9th, we have the special ed end of year collection, which opens for the VR 10 to 16. And then June 25th, we have the summer EBT final due date. So you want to be checking your FERPL records, making sure that any homeless, foster care, and migrant students have free lunch reported, and checking that the demographic information for any students with FERPL data is accurate because OTDA may need to contact them. And then we have June 25th and July 23rd. Now, those are just our monthly due dates that were added on the timeline this year for those specific domains listed, just making sure that you're doing those bi-weekly imports for those specific domains, especially. June 30th, the staff evaluation opens, which Michelle is going to speak to a little bit more later on. And because we're not having a meeting July and August, I'm going to go over the due dates in the upcoming few months as well. So July 9th, we have the Regents assessment data that's due in our testing department. They report those Regents directly to level 1 for you, but still check your ASAP Regents reports for accuracy. And July 9th as well, we have the special ed events for the VR 11 and 12, which is due. So there's a lot of special ed due dates coming up. So we have July 30th, which is the VR 10, 13, 15, and 16 and is due. And then the certification for those reports is on August 2nd. So don't forget that one. You know, it's early August. Then we have August 13th at noon, which is our Wednesday deadline there. End of year special ed data due and the final SIRS end of year data due with the exception of the staff evaluation and SE events, which those deadlines are noted below. August 29th is certification of SIRS end of year data is due, and that's the Friday before Labor Day. I just wanted the Labor Day weekend. So I just want to mention that because maybe your superintendent might be off that day. So you want to make sure that you're planning ahead for that certification. September 9th, we have the special ed events VR 11, 12, and 14 is due. And the 15th of September, we have the certification of those VR reports. So I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'm going to pass it over to Helen.
Thank you, Sam. And I'm going to actually just go ahead and pass it over to Sarah Liner in our special services team.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Data Team. We're going to keep it brief today just for the sake of time. And last month, I gave you a lot of information. So we're just going to briefly review what some of that was. So special reminders here at the Special Services team, we are in the middle of our indicator workshops. These are typically held for our special ed office staff. However, we open it up to you guys as well. So if you have any interest in those, I do have the links to those workshops in the next slide. And just another reminder, all of these due dates that we are going over today, they are subject to change. We try our best to notify you guys if these do change, but just keep that in mind. All right, so here are those links to these workshops that we have. We only have one SE event workshop left, and that is later today, this afternoon. That will be covering indicator 11, 12, and the VR 14 if you're interested in that information. And then starting later this week into next week, we have our end of year snapshot workshops. So these links will bring you right to the professional growth registration. So you can go ahead and do so if you're interested. And then just to wrap it up, these are your certification dates. Do keep in mind the migration deadlines that Sam just reviewed with you, being the Wednesday before all of these dates. But this is a nice little quick page to keep in mind for all your special ed data certification dates. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. And with that, we will give it over to our testing services team. I'm not sure if it's Lori or John who's presenting today.
Lori.
Lori.
Thanks, Helen. We would like to remind you that June 30th is the cutoff date for NICETEL administrations for the school year. There's a 2-week break for levels 2 through 8. Level 1 can still be administered, but it's considered part of the 25-26 school year. NICE testing is ongoing and still in progress until June 6th. We want to remind you that any special circumstance codes, the codes that are equivalent to the 3 through 8 tested, not tested codes, must be entered by that date as well. There isn't an extra week like there was for the 3 through 8 codes, and we at the RIC don't have access to them during the assessment cleanup window. So 5 p.m. on June 6th is a hard stop. Standalone field tests are being administered also through June 6th, and you do not have to enter any not tested codes for them. ELA, math, and science paper answer sheets should be back to us as they were due May 30th. If not, you should at least have a scheduled pickup. Please reach out to us if you haven't done so yet. And the NICE slot sheets are due back on June 6th. Please call us to schedule your pickup if necessary. The tested, not tested reports with the scores will populate on level 2 once the test data is extracted from Nextera. At this time, all Regents answer sheets have been delivered. Please check them. Verify that you have the correct sheets for Earth Science and the bio exams, so that they match the what you're administering. We've had a couple of schools reach out to us for different answer sheets because they ordered the wrong ones. And on that note, life science, bio, and earth and space science and geometry are all new exams this year. The conversion charts won't be available immediately, but they will be available no later than June 26th. We do recommend cleaning your region scanners so that your scanning will go smoothly. And while they are rare, if you do need to report a major life event for a student, please reach out to us so we can do that for you. Lastly, as in the past, requests for Regents SMS files need to be submitted to us via email. Specific support contacts are listed here, but they haven't changed since last June. Finally, thank you for reading our newsletters. If you need to satisfy your Schoolhouse Rock earthworms that we triggered, you can watch most of them on YouTube.
Thank you very much, Lori. Okay, so we're going to hand this over to Pam, who will start off the data collection and reporting portion. Pam.
Okay, just for the record, I unmuted myself before I started to speak. There's a first time for everything.
There absolutely is.
Okay, so as usual, I get to deliver a little bit of the bad news to kick us off. So here's our monthly counts, and the data here, it reflects the information as of yesterday, June 2nd. Level 1C errors are more than double last month. They've gone from just over 1,000 to 2,500 plus. Although 1,100 of these are for assessments, which I know our testing team is working on, there are still 1,234, that's a 1, 2, 3, 4 count of attendance errors. Remember, records with errors are not moving forward to level 2, and a missing attendance record is considered an absence. I'm also seeing increases in partner project fact and student class entry exit. So these would be a high priority to be corrected. Please run your level 1C report and take a look. Okay, and then we move on to the level 1C warnings, which although the data will move forward, they have come down a little bit from about 17,500 to just over 16,000. A big group of these are related to the home phone number issues, where either you have invalid characters in there or you have all zeros. And those are truly informational. You see them at level 0 as well. But there are still over 10,000 other warning messages, which you should take a look at and review. As the end of the year approaches, set aside some time to review and correct the errors and any warnings that are fixable. In an effort to have your data as clean as possible. So the nicest queue still is at 1 this month. That's a different one than last month. You guys are pretty good at getting in there and fixing those. But just remember to keep an eye on it. You do get emails when your district has information, an item on the queue. And finally, the student digital resources, the percentage is up by a bit, and we went from 48.8 to 49.6. We continue to creep in the right direction, but overall, there are still less than 50% of students reported. So if your district is struggling this year to collect this data, now is a good time to review and maybe put in a plan or a different plan for next year. Although we realize this is a difficult data collection, it is possible to collect this information. So keep on trying, make your best efforts, and we'll see how the numbers look next year at this time. I see there was a question. Where is the home phone number best viewed? That would, Gabby, that would be in your SMS. You can see it in level 0 as well. Either the level 0 informational report or the level 1C will give you a list of individuals with 0 home phone numbers. And we're going to talk about that next. Okay. Nice segue. Thank you for that. So earlier this year, SED updated level 0 to flag phone numbers that were reported with either 7 or all 10 zeros. Originally, SED intended the zeros to be used when student information needed to be suppressed for confidentiality reasons. However, at the same time, SED made phone numbers a required field. In reality, the zeros are being used legitimately by districts much more frequently than SED expected, such as when a student leaves a district and is unlinked from an address and a phone number. This situation has resulted in many more informational messages than originally anticipated. We notified SED and they reviewed the situation. The outcome is that these informational messages are not going away. For districts with a large number of these messages, unfortunately, you may miss a valid situation due to the volume of messages. So, what are our thoughts? Given that we cannot change what's happening, perhaps looking forward to next year, you may want to download the list of errors, during your early imports and review the list. It should not be as long as what we're seeing at the end of the year. With each import, you can then compare the current list to what was previously reviewed and limit your next review to only the new messages. It's still tedious, but hopefully not so overwhelming. Okay, was there another question?
Yes, there's a question from Mike. No enrollment report, which is causing L1C errors. We have 2 students who were enrolled in our UPK program last year. This school year, the parent decided to hold them out of kindergarten. May I ignore those errors, or is there something I should do?
Okay, I think, Mike, can you send us an email on that? And we'll dig into the details. Oftentimes it's not completely straightforward unless one of my colleagues has a better response.
No, I agree with that. We can look.
Okay, so yeah, Mike, just send us an email with, student IDs and we'll dig into that a little bit further.
And then there's another question, Pam. What do you
Okay.
suggest in cases where the family does not have a phone number?
In that case, since you are required to report a phone number, the only option you have is to report the zeros. So, and the format of that is technically supposed to be the area code followed by 7 zeros. Although it doesn't really distinguish between 10 zeros or 7 zeros. Okay. All right.
Would a possible solution to be to use all ones rather than zeros?
I'm not sure if that's going to get flagged as an invalid phone number or not. I would stick to either a phone number or the zeros, not really introduce another, another option.
Yeah,
Got
I
it,
think
thanks.
the dollar template says that as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So then I'm going to pass it over. Wait a minute. Okay. Okay, I see. Dawn has a question on student digital resources, and we'll get back to you offline on that since it's specific to an SMS and for the sake of the amount of we need to cover today.
I
I'm
would
just
just
gonna
say
move on.
for the sake of time, please hold your questions. You can go ahead and put them in the chat. We may not address them. We do have a full schedule
Yeah.
today. So if you have specific questions about what we're talking about, you can go ahead and send us an email to datawarehouse@mhric.org and we will respond to you. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm going to turn it over to Sam.
Thanks, Sam. Okay, so I mentioned earlier about the Ellen immigrant counts due tomorrow for the Title III funding. So be sure to check if these students meet the immigrant definition as well in SIRS, because immigrants should be exited from the immigrant program code with an exit date of June 30th when they've been in a U.S. school for 3 full academic years, and that's all defined in the SIRS. So be sure to check that out. I've also linked the memo here in case anybody didn't get that yet regarding the Title III funding from the Office of Bilingual Education and their contact information. So not much time before the deadline tomorrow, but if you haven't, make sure to check out the SIRS 652, the annual Title III allocation for ELS and immigrants report on level 2. Okay. So moving on, we are still in the process of revamping some level 1 report guides. And this month we have 10 new guides that are going to help you with some of those upcoming data polls and information that we talked about already. So for EBT, L, immigrant, UPK, and there's quite a few visualization guides in here as well. They've been already posted to our website on the data warehouse page and then also the testing services page. So keep a lookout. We have more resources coming soon. All right, thank you. And our June task list has also been released. It's linked here. It includes all the deadlines, specifics, things that should be reviewed in the month of June. So our DDC meeting today, we're going over overview of items, but in the task list, it's pretty specific. So it's chock full of information. So new DDCs and even experienced DDCs, I urge you to review it because the next few months are pretty heavy with data reporting. It'll help you, stay organized. And then for July and August, we're going to have one task list, which will be released in July. So for now, I'm going to pass it back to Pam.
Okay, just for the record, I remembered to unmute the second time. All right, so we're going to look ahead, and these items are things that, need to occur between now and the end and the mid-August. With a little bit of extension into October for the staff eval. Okay, so first item on our list, this is the end of the year stuff. Yay, we're at the end of the year. So as Sam mentioned earlier, please refer to the task list to ensure that you are on track for all data that needs to be reported at the end of the year. We are going to go into brief detail on some items that are overlooked or sometimes forgotten at the end of the year. Okay, so first on the list are other assessments that are listed here. Luckily, districts supported by the RIC, by the Mid-Hudson RIC, have the majority of their assessments reported by the testing department directly to level 1. And thank you to our testing department for all that effort. But, and there's always a but, there are some other assessments that districts need to report. So don't forget to do this as you work on your long list of end of year tasks. Okay, the advanced category, which used to be Alt-Reg and CCR. If your students have taken any AP or IB assessments, you'll want to report those as they will impact accountability calculations for students who have taken those exams. So put that on your list. CTE assessments. These should be reported by the provider of the CTE program. In most cases, this will be a BOCES, but we have some districts that do have approved programs. So make sure you're reporting those technical skills assessments or CTE assessments. Your LOT assessments should be reported. That's languages other than English for the newer folks. Should be reported for all students who took and passed a LOT pathway or a checkpoint B exam. Anticipating the next question, which we tend to get, no, you do not report checkpoint A exams. And you should not report any exam that received a failing score. Any reported record will currently just have a yes in the appropriate column in the SIRS 340 and 341 reports. It's valuable to your guidance counselors when assessing which credential a student is eligible for to have this information accurate. Okay, since there is just a yes there, if you report a record with a failing score, you may end up with a yes in a column where it's not, in a row where it's not appropriate. Okay, just a little glimpse ahead. I had brought it up to SED that they should prevent failing scores from migrating or from going into the data warehouse. But they're looking actually at a different change where rather than a yes, they will put a an indicator in there of pass or fail. Don't hold your breath, but that's hopefully on the horizon. Okay, so the SEQ or CDOS assessments, those should be reported as appropriate. And finally, the COSF, which is an assessment administered to special ed preschool students and should be reported each year in the years that the district is required to report, or in other words, once every 6 years. And those assessments will be coming out of Frontline. I think that process works fairly smoothly. So if you have any questions on that, probably our special ed team is going to be your first point of contact for that. Okay, now to continue the back and forth, we're going to go back over to Sam for a few minutes.
Thanks, Pam. Okay, So the districts listed here are participating in the Partner Project Act for 24-25. So PPF, just a reminder, is PTEC, Smart Scholars, Smart Transfers, which you can see all the full definitions in SIRS. And BOCES does not report PPF records, so you're off the hook with that. Now, the districts, before any panic sets in, on the right side, on the right column, they only report PPF if they have students at the Duchess Academy for Mechatronics and Smart Technology program. And just a reminder as well, when a PPF record is reported, student credit GPA must also be reported. That's a separate domain in level 0. And student credit GPA is only imported when there are PPF records. So I've also included the link for the NICED website. It does show you all these districts and programs, specific programs that the students may be attending. So if you do see your district and you're not participating, or if you don't see your district and you are participating, whichever way, you should let State Ed know via the data support email. It's datasupport@niced.gov, or their website through the ticket system as well. Okay, so switching gears over to some CTE reminders, because it's that time of year. So BOCES and districts with an approved CTE program, they should be loading CTE data regularly. So this is just a reminder, and this will help you prevent that end of year deadline rush, right? So keep in mind, not all BOCES are within our region, like if it's Rockland or Northern Westchester. And that CTE data should be verified on the SIRS 305, the CTE report, or the SIRS 345, the CTE concentrators report. So if you go into those reports and let's say you have students out of BOCES and there's no information in there yet, then the CTE program provider hasn't loaded it yet. So it's an opportunity to collaborate with your BOCES or district, whichever, for that accurate data reporting of CTE. So what needs to be reported, or who needs to report what? Let's see that on the next slide, please. So the program provider, the CTE program provider, they report the CTE program, and that does include the intensity of participant or concentrator, and if they completed the program. They also report that technical skills assessment for CTE, and then work-based learning. Now, work-based learning is only reported once that student earns those 54 hours. So that could be in a prior school year or the current school year. And then the district of accountability, usually we refer to that as the home district, reports the diploma with CTE endorsement if that's applicable or appropriate. So again, the district and BOCES will need to collaborate accordingly to ensure the diploma and endorsements or programs or whatnot are reported accurately. Because if that diploma with the CTE endorsement isn't reported accurately by that home district, it could affect BOCES funding. So on both sides here, we need to communicate and make sure that we're reporting CET programs and the diplomas correctly. Okay. So, end of year reporting, we kind of have touched on this a few times already, right? So it's almost here. These are just some items that you want to kind of put on your checkoff list that are typically reported at the end of the year. So it'll give you a good idea of what you should be working on. So just a reminder, all of the program service data should be verified or reviewed on the SIRS 401 reasonableness report, which many of these things are found on there. So just be sure that you're checking off like all these things. You know, graduates, are the SEALs reported if that's applicable to your district? As Pam just spoke about, those level 0 assessments, because those are not reported by our testing department. The CTE programs, if you're the program provider. So there's many things on here that you should be looking at and looking to report. And then also NICEA slot, exiting those students that are no longer eligible. So that'll be coming probably August. We'll see, right before the deadline probably. But so just keep these on your radar as the time goes on. And for now, I'm going to pass it back to Pam.
Wow, 3 times in a row I unmuted. Proud of myself this morning. Anyway, let's shift over and talk about graduates. Congratulations to all of them. What a great accomplishment. When we're reporting data for those graduates, it's possible to upload what you think is complete information for your graduates and get no errors in level 0. But that does not mean it's 100% accurate. Here's what you need to remember to report for every graduate or completer. Most important is the credential type. This is used as a measure of school performance, which will be reflected in the school report card, so accuracy is very important here. Did they earn a local, Regents, or advanced Regents diploma, or did they earn a credential such as a SAC or a CDOS? Did they earn a CTE endorsement? If your CTE students attended a BOCES, you will need to contact, as Sam said, your BOCES providers to determine which students have met all requirements for this endorsement. Okay. If the student earned a local diploma, was this awarded based on a superintendent's determination? Did the student qualify for honors or mastery? Check out these definitions. Okay. Your guidance department should be well versed in this, but if none are reported for your district, it can't hurt to ask and see if they may have omitted that information. There are several reports that can be used to verify your graduate data. You'll want to review these reports thoroughly and pay special attention to any category that has a 0. The reasonableness report, as Sam mentioned, is one of the reports you can use to take a look at that. If you are reporting 0 CTE endorsements or 0 students who qualified for mastery in math or science, something may have been overlooked. There are a total of 27 different credentials that can be awarded, so choose wisely. In addition to the credential type, all graduates and completers must have a career pathway specified. Make sure that the pathway is valid for the credential type. And don't forget the seals. These are reported using program service records, and they are reported in the year of graduation. So make sure you include students who may have earned the seal in a prior school year. Don't forget the grade 9 entry date. Although this should not change very often at all, it's also known as the cohort date, and make sure that it reflects the date the student first entered grade 9. And finally, you want to end the student's enrollment with the appropriate exit code. If the correct exit code is not reported, the student will not show up as a graduate. So it's important to get all those details correct. But all of those details will impact your graduation rate, and your college career and civic readiness index will be impacted by that. So this is just a quick review, but it's a good checklist to have as you are entering this data. Next on the list, we're going to shift gears and talk briefly about a very exciting event that occurs every August. For those of you who have done this before, you'll know how exciting exiting ELL students can be. The good news is you cannot do this quite yet. The bad news is you will likely not get the information to complete this step until shortly before the close of the data warehouse or after, which is what causes all the excitement. To be honest, SED often misses this deadline, and the data is not available until after the data warehouse closes. Fear not, we have always been given an extension when SED does not get the data to us in time. Okay. Students are exited based on the results of the NYSA slot and the results of the 3 through 8 ELA and the results of the Regents. All 3 of these tests are used to determine students who are no longer eligible for ELL services. And some of these test results will not be available until mid-August. So how do you plan for this? Just know that from the second week of August to the beginning of September, someone in your district must be available to make these changes. So if you are planning a vacation, you'll want to make arrangements before you leave. But we have some additional good news to help you out that I'm going to cover next. Okay, so this is an attempt to give you a list of all the details you need to pay attention to. So firstly, what are the criteria to exit a student from ELL eligibility? When must they be exited? And what additional programs should also be ended? There are two reasons that a student is exited from ELL eligibility. Okay, and that's the 0231 program code. Students must be exited on June 30th of the current school year, so 2025 this year, if they meet the following criteria. They score commanding on the NICE slot, in which case they're exited with a 3011. Or they score expanding on the NICE slot and they score proficient on the 3 through 8 ELA, or they score 65 or higher on the Regents, or they passed an approved alternative to the Regents English, in which case, which is option B here with expanding, they're exited with the 3022. There is sometimes confusion about exiting students who score expanding. In the past, I've had folks ask if they must exit these students or if it is optional. The SED guidance is that if a student meets these criteria, they must be exited. Also, another note about ELL students and their eligibility, which often causes confusion. Once a student meets the criteria to be exited, they will continue to receive support services, even though they are no longer eligible, or even though they no longer have an eligibility record reported. So, which causes confusion because sometimes if you ask an instructor if the student is still receiving services, they'll say yes, and that is the case. They're required to receive services after they exit, but they are no longer eligible based on their test scores. Okay. And what else should you end? On the next slide. Okay, so if a 0231, the ELL eligibility record is ended, the 1232 SIFE record must also be ended, and the 5709 ENL program record must be ended. And the guidance says that the following program service codes should be ended if a student is no longer in the program, but may be left open if the student continues in the program. Often these are closed, and that seems to be okay. If you think about it, the 1 or 2 way dual language program has students who are not ELL eligible, and we don't report the program code for that. So, but this is what the official guidance says. And just a final reminder that the SIFE record, the students with interrupted or inconsistent formal education, should also be exited if the student scores transitioning or higher on the NICE slot. So that's just a reminder to keep that in mind at that time of year. That information can also be updated. Okay. And luckily, SED or WinnieRick has provided us with a couple of reports that Sam's going to talk to you about now, which will help you to get through exiting these students.
Yes, so WinnieRick developed these reports. So once the NICE slot results are released, usually a day or so after, these reports will become available for this year. So this does show the breadcrumb trail of each report. I personally would use the NICE slot L tested out student list, which I'll show you a screenshot in a moment. I just feel like it's a little more user friendly for exiting L students. And once you exit students and migrate that data in level 0, this report will update the following day to show that the students were exited correctly, or if they're still missing some kind of update. So last year, these reports were really helpful. So I think they will be again this year. So definitely keep this in your back pocket for when the results come. Okay, so what does the report look like? This is the L tested out quick screenshot of the student list, and you can see it has like a little X on the right, sorry, on the left, for that the program was ended correctly. So if you missed one, because that does happen, because a lot of these updates are manually done, and not an import, because it is done so last minute, so they could be missed. So like I said, once it's migrated, this will update, and it's a good resource. So for now, I believe I'm going to pass it back to Helen.
It's me. Thank you, Sam. Okay, so we have SEDREF updates coming up for this year. We do this annually to update the SED reference file. You should have received information about downloading a form from the business portal as of May 29th. And any changes to your SEDREF listing should be returned to SED by July 11th. And that's for all districts. In addition to that, BOVL listings are coming due. I have reached out to all of the BOCES in our region. So you've all heard from me, and I've heard back from some of you. Your BOVL listing form is due back to me no later than July 7th, please. Michelle.
Thank you, Helen, and good morning.
I want to address, I'm sorry, there is a question in the chat from Charity. The only people who will have received the BOVL emails would be the BOCES. BOVL is an acronym for BOCES Virtual Location. So the only folks who have to deal with the BOVL locations at all are the BOCES. The public school districts who are on the call, all you have to worry about is that SEDREF listing. And again, there should be a form on the business portal. Okay, thanks.
All right, good morning, everyone. Last month, we reviewed this slide to let everyone know that although the reporting of staff evaluation could now occur under one of two plans, 3012D or 3012E, all districts, according to NYSED, are still reporting under 3012D for the 24-25 school year. The only change in terms of 30D reporting is the change in the overall rating codes, which are now OR01 to OR04 instead of the OCR. There are links on the slide to information about to get information about both plans, and districts must adopt a 3012E or STEPS plan by June 30th of the 2031-32 school year. This month, to further support you in your reporting efforts for 24-25, we have two resource materials to share with you. So we have an infographic that will list all the important deadlines, as well as the first module of the staff evaluation tutorial that provides more context around those due dates. Links are on the slide, which you will be able to access when the assets are distributed from today's meeting. And these resources have also been posted to the resource library on our website. Sam provided the link and passkey on an earlier slide when speaking about the Level 1 report guides. Additional modules in the staff evaluation tutorial will be posted and shared with the field in the upcoming weeks, so please stay tuned for that. I do have one additional item related to staff evaluation that I'd like to bring to your attention, and that is the redesign of the staff evaluation rating manual entry screen, which occurred with the latest release of Level 0. Since over the course of the next few years, LEAs will be transitioning to a new evaluation plan, the Level 0 screen was amended to be able to accept data imported under either plan. To be clear, that's either 3012D or 3012E, one or the other, not both. So no matter what plan is utilized by the LEA, the top row or header row will contain the staff name, staff ID as sourced from Staff Snapshot. The reporting date, which will be June 30th of that school year, the evaluation type, this will display teacher or principal and must match the title and staff snapshot. And the evaluation group, which is where the plan 3012D or 3012E will be identified, and the staff members' overall rating. So the code for that will also be there. The second row will be reserved for 3012D and will be where the required student performance and observation scores are entered. If your district's 3012D plan allows for optional scores, those will be here as well. In prior years, there was a separate record or line for each score and rating, so now it is condensed. The third and fourth rows will be used once a district has transitioned to the 3012E evaluation plan. The third row will contain data for teachers, and the fourth row will contain data for principals. And again, since we know that everyone is using 3012D, those two rows will be blank for this year. Please note that this template is read-only at this time and will not accept data until around June 30th, July 1st. We will notify the field once it is open and available. All right, so with that, I will turn things over to Pam.
Okay, back again. I keep popping up. I won't say like a bad penny, but I keep popping up. Okay, good news. SED has released their end of year grids. For those of you who've done this before, you're probably familiar with those grids. They basically tell us which reports require certification, which reports need verification, and which report have information have additional information. I wanted at them all to end in shun to go along with Helen's slide. I tripped over my words. Okay, so no matter the category, all reports should be reviewed with the possible exception of the student profile report, because you probably wouldn't want to review that for every student in your district. But let's look at the New York State grids. Okay, for 24-25, there are 4 grids, as there have been for the last few years. The public school districts, charter schools, and special ed school districts are the blue grid, which, since most of you are falling into that category, that one has center stage here. The BOCES grid is the yellow grid up on the upper right. Religious and independent schools are green, and state operated schools are purple, and we don't usually have too many of those within our region that are reporting. So, and they also produced a new FAQ document that you may find useful, and all these documents will be sent out to you after the meeting. So if you haven't already, you should start end of year verification now, or at least start your plan of how you're going to do end of year verification. In order to do so, you have to know what must be certified and a plan for who will be included in the verification process. Okay, the end of year grids, you will see, looking at the blue grid, you can see it contains the following information. The folder in level 2 in the first column that contains the report you will be reviewing, what the focus of the report is. In other words, what type of data is included, what the report number is, the report title, and any notes on the report. The first list in each report identifies what reports need to be certified. So there's 2 groups within each report, and if you notice, just above the blue line on the larger grid, thanks Helen, it says certification required. This group will be followed by a second group that say do not require certification. We highly recommend, though, that your district review and verify the data in all of these reports also. The data in the reports that do not need to be certified is presented with a different focus, and oftentimes errors will be more easy to spot in these reports. In addition to these grids provided by SED, the Mid-Hudson RIC will provide our version of the grids, which provides some additional information and may help you to determine who should be reviewing each report. I am really tripping over my words this morning. Okay, so this here is a screenshot of the BOCES version of the MHRIC. Notice that the color code agrees with the state ed codes in that the BOCES version is yellow. We provide versions for both BOCES and for the public and charter school grids. There is a lot of information here, so let's take a moment just to break it down. Columns 1, 2, 3, and 5 come from the SED end of year grid. Those are the focus area, the folder, the report number, and the title. Bonus columns can be found in column number 4, which incorporates the refresh cycle from a separate SED report and saves you from going back and forth to another chart. Reports are refreshed daily, weekly, or annually with a few variations on the theme. Variation number 1, attendance reports have a 1-week lag. Now, during the school year, this lag can be frustrating but after the school year ends, the lag won't really matter because attendance data is no longer reported after the close of school, or no longer shouldn't be changing after the close of school. So throughout July, the lag shouldn't matter for your attendance reports. Okay. Variation number 2, as the deadline gets closer, the specific date is yet to be determined, some of the weekly reports will start to get updated twice per week. So you will be able to see the information more quickly. And that helps as you're importing data and trying to review what, the final result in level 2. And then variation number 3, there are some reports that have not yet been issued for 24-25. So check out the legend in the bottom left to see what each of the codes mean. It's cryptic, but it's there. Okay. The second bonus to the Mid-Hudson RIC end of year report grid is the green columns over on the right. And these show the suggested reviewers. We are often asked who should review each report. Well, this is our answer. But if someone else really wants to see a report, assuming they have a need to know, this is not intended to be an exhaustive list, but it's just a guide to get you going. So take a breath, grab a cup of coffee, and dive in. And always remember, this is a team effort. So share the joy and invite others to join you on this wonderful adventure through your data. So, okay. The next topic we have is looking way ahead. And these are items that are going to be pertinent to the 25-26 school year. Okay. First item we have a change that is impacting all New York State, which you may have seen information on this from the governor's office. A link to the memo is provided here should you want to address additional details. Also provided is a link to a webinar that will be held on June 5th regarding these changes. It may be a good idea for you or someone in your district to join the webinar. We are sharing what we know here, but there are still some outstanding questions about the impacts on state reporting. What we can tell you is purple reporting is not going away. Okay, even though, the first thing to think that if all students are going to be receiving free lunch, then we don't need to report who receives free lunch. But that is not what our FERPL reporting is. FERPL data, along with economically disadvantaged information, is used to determine student subgroups for accountability purposes, and the guidance on that has not changed. Some common questions we have received in the past from CEP districts where all students received free meals apply to this situation as well. First question would be, if all students receive free meals, do we need to report FERPL eligibility, or should we just report it for everyone? And the answer is yes, you still must report it. And no, you cannot report everyone who receives a free meal. What you are reporting is those students who are eligible to receive a free meal. And I'll have a little more on the FERPL changes in a moment when we talk about the next slide. So be aware, districts are going to be providing free meals to students. Your reporting of FERPL eligibility does not change. You are reporting only those students who are eligible, but there may be some tweaks to this coming up. Sherry, I see your question. I'm not sure. I don't think it's going to have an effect. You're still going to be reporting, you know, providing all students with free meals, and you're still going to be reporting students who are eligible to receive free meals. Okay, so moving on to what we know so far about what will change for next year. And we'll get through this. It's not a surprise that with a new school year, there will be new date items to report. Occasionally items are removed, but unfortunately there isn't any on the list this year for being removed. But we do have some additions. So keep in mind, for each of these items, updates will likely be required by the vendors, your student management systems, your HR systems, your special ed systems, to support the new data collections. Vendors have or will shortly be notified by SED and will then determine how these items will be implemented within each source system. The link provided at the bottom, commonly known as the vendor landing page, maintained by SED, will be updated for the 25-26 school year as the documents become available. Check back here for the details of the new requirements. We're giving you a heads up now. Not all details are available, but you may be able to begin planning. So, what's new? SED is requesting parent email addresses be reported next year. It is not required, but for most districts, I'm sure you already collect these for communication with the parents. So hopefully, all that will be required for this is that the vendor will update their code to pull that information into the export, and ta-da, done. The only word of caution I have here is that similar to the 0 phone numbers, which was intended for situations where confidentiality was required, you may also want to take a look at any email addresses for those students who have confidentiality issues. Just keep that in the back of your head. Okay, we now have a new day type. Moving on to day calendar. Okay, districts will now be able to indicate any day where they switch to remote instruction. This will obviously count as an instructional day, and districts will now be able to report and track the number of remote days during the year. Okay. All right. Third item, staff snapshot will now allow you to report teachers who have completed the national board certification process. This will be something that your HR system vendor will need to support. So what can you do to plan ahead in this area? Reporting this information may require looking back at all your current teachers to see who has earned this certification. And you may want to just give your HR department a heads up. A nice summer learning project might be to go through those files and make a list of the teachers who have earned that certification. Okay. It is not a required item, but it can be reported if you have the information. Okay. A more significant change is the requirement to now report PD8 information in SERVs. Okay. there is a new template for this data collection called the infraction response template. 25-26 will be a dual collection year, meaning that the data will continue to be collected as in the past, and the new SIRS collection will also begin. The SIRS extracts should be ready in February. Okay, so there's nothing to do at the beginning of the year or right now. And we will be bringing you more additional details in our DDC meetings in the fall. Okay. Next area, we have some new program service codes. The 8302 should be reported for students residing on reservation land who meet the criteria that will be included in the SIRS manual next year. I don't think that's a huge impact for our local districts, but just be aware of that. What will matter is our UPK programs. There now will be 4 new codes, 903, 904, 905, and 906, which will distinguish the type of funding that is used for each UPK student. So planning ahead on this, this is one area where some preliminary work may help. You may want to meet with your UPK administrator or staff to determine which funding streams are used in your district. There may be more than one. And then identify which program code should be used to report each student. This may not be a right now thing, but perhaps over the summer, once they have finalized their UPK list. Okay, and 4010, my sister's keeper is similar to my brother's keeper, and planning ahead for this, since some programs occur in July and August, you may want to get a jump start on the data to save some time later in the year. And finally, for those of you who have been reporting data for a few years, you may remember when we reported ELL FERPL eligibility types for students who receive free or reduced price lunch. And I'm sure you love doing it. It's coming back, but there are only 3 types that need to be reported: CEP/P2, DCMP, and FDPIR, which is food distribution on Indian reservations. So I think the first 2 are going to be more pertinent to our area. And we admittedly don't have all the answers on this, and we did ask the questions though. We are aware there are some issues getting parents to return the household income eligibility form. But as we receive additional details on how this is actually, going to roll out, we will pass them on. And I know some districts continue to document this in their SMS, even though it was no longer required to be reported. So you may have a leg up on others. Okay. All right. And I'm going to, for the sake of time, I know I threw a lot at you at the last minute, but we will go back and review any questions in the chat and get back to you to follow up with this. Again, this is a heads up. Most of this is not something that's going to impact your end of year reporting. So just know it's coming, but put it aside for now. And as we get more details, we will provide those to you. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Pam.
Okay. Yes.
And just to wrap up, congratulations. This was the last in our 24-25 meetings. So we will include the link to this video in an upcoming email. We do have the registration links and the dates available for you for the 25-26 school year. So you can go ahead and register for any and all of those presently. They're mostly on Tuesdays. There are a couple of days this year that will be on Wednesdays. And so just be aware of that when you are putting these on your calendars. Thank you so much, everybody. We should have an email out to you within the next couple of days with this slide deck and the grids and any other information that we owe you. So thank you everybody so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time.